Man, check out that side exit. Oh, wow, wow. Pop, 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 pop. Ta, 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 ta. What's going on, YouTube? Levi of Old Iron Off-Road, back out here today on the Ultimate Crawler. Now, obviously you see a couple of exhaust related products sitting here on the table, which we are going to be installing today, and we're going to be talking about a couple of different things. We're going to be talking about turbo blankets, exhaust wrap, and we're going to be talking about the actual quality of cheap versus expensive products. Now, genuinely, I am a get what you pay for type of guy, and without any research, I purchased the cheap, I don't even want to touch this thing, cheap Amazon carbon fiber turbo blanket. It was 30 bucks, and I thought, we'll give it a shot. As soon as I unpackaged it, you could see the quality of the product was pretty poor. Now, here we have a genuine DEI, and you can tell when a company makes a serial numbered, tabbed product that they're actually proud of what they've made. Now, we have gone ahead and finished up the exhaust. We've got the downpipe done. We've got everything snaked in the chassis. And there was no way I was going to try to film that. It was a hassle. A lot of time was spent underneath the vehicle, really just looking and piecing parts together to see where I could snake it through. We did end up with a side exit exhaust, and I think it turned out pretty well. First, we're going to talk about, and I'm going to show you the difference in quality between this expensive, more expensive. I'm not going to call this even expensive when you see the quality of the cheap version. We're going to talk about these. We're going to get this installed on the turbo. We're going to get the downpipe wrapped, and we're going to get the entire exhaust installed in the vehicle. So make sure you stay tuned. So first up, I'm putting gloves on for this, and it's probably a good idea even with the quality stuff. This turbo blanket, the DEI turbo blanket, really doesn't have any fiber showing, and you can tell in the stitching and the seams that this is a way better piece. Now here is our Scamazon Special, and I honestly don't even want to touch this thing. I think I've got fibers in my hand just for the few minutes we've spent talking about them. Everything's already starting to fall apart. I've probably got some stainless steel liner in here. And I mean, it feels, no, it actually feels like it has some fiberglass stuffed in there. That's what it pretty much feels like, when this is actually supposed to have some titanium, I think, bedded into this. Not really sure on the construction, but of what the actual material is, but this pretty much looks like just fiberglass stitched together. And again, you can see, hopefully you can see that on camera, like the fibers. I mean, even my hands, this has never been used, and it's already starting to fall apart. I mean, it's trash. And I did some research after I purchased this thing, and that was one of the big complaints with these cheap turbo blankets, is they blow apart at the stitching, and they'll actually burn, and they will leave white fluff, probably fiberglass sloughing off all over your engine compartment. So if I was in the market for a turbo blanket, don't waste your money on these $30 units. Go ahead and pony up for something a little more quality. I mean, you can see side by side how much better these are. So why are we using a turbo blanket? Well, our main purpose for using a turbo blanket is simply to help with underhood temps. In a rock crawler application, or even in any automotive application, the more you can reduce underhood temps, the more comfortable obviously your vehicle is going to be, but the less damaging it is on other surrounding components. Now we've got, coilovers that are in close proximity. We've got all manner of stuff that are going to be packed into this engine compartment. So anything that we can do to pull some heat out from underneath the engine compartment and prolong the life of other components, I think the better off that we will be. Now, there are some more scientific reasons for using a turbo blanket. It can actually help increase turbo efficiency by holding heat in the exhaust housing. We really don't care too much about that. If we get any kind of performance benefit from this, great, but that's not what we're after. Same is to be said with the exhaust wrap. Now again, this is a DEI exhaust wrap. This is a little bit more expensive. This supposedly has pulverized lava rock bedded into the fibers. This is pretty much just a non-coated fiberglass. They dye it. It doesn't have any kind of proprietary coating on it. I have used the cheap exhaust wrap in the past. It does all right. If you ever get anywhere near it with a pressure washer, it's going to come apart, which is partially to be understood. I mean, you hit anything like that with a pressure washer, obviously you're going to have problems. But again, with this, there are some performance benefits to using an exhaust wrap. Now, how much horsepower are you going to be able to eke out by wrapping your exhaust? I really don't know. It can actually help with what is called scavenging. And basically what scavenging is when your exhaust is being pushed out on the exhaust stroke. It can create a low pressure system, and then when your intake valve opens and your fuel air mixture is being pushed or drawn into the cylinder, that scavenging and vacuum effect can actually help pull that in. So, performance benefits, maybe. So without further ado, we're gonna slap this guy on and we're gonna get the downpipe wrapped and we're gonna start installing the exhaust. So let's get it. That one already looks so much better than the other one. I did actually install the other one and it looked like trash. It really did. It looked terrible. The only crappy thing about this one, you use stainless tie wire to hold it on, and it's a little tight in this area right here. There's a lot going on, so I'm gonna try to sneak our hands in there and get some tie wire around this dude and see if we can get it strapped on there. You know, I probably should screw the turbo drain outlet on before I get too carried away with this, because that's not going to want to go on there. If it's not one thing, it's 10. I don't know what we're doing here. All right, we're just going to abandon ship on that. And then we're going to go ahead and wrap the exhaust. Now, some of this stuff is intended to be installed wet, and this stuff specifically says do not wet it. It actually is pretty stretchy already, and we're going to install it with 1/4-inch wraps. You want to make sure you're getting it tight because you don't want it to unwind. So there we go. We've got this guy wrapped up. We'll get this guy put on. Just like Jenga. Hey, you still watching? Do us a favor, take 2 seconds. Reach down there, hit the subscribe button, click the bell icon for notifications when new videos are uploaded. We're working on getting some new merch. We currently do have a Printify shop, which if I'm gonna be honest, I'm not super thrilled about, especially from a mobile device. Printify doesn't seem to work well. So we are actually working on getting some merch here at the shop, and my wife will be handling that. So keep an eye out for that. But in the meantime, if you want an OG Old Iron Off-Road shirt or want one of the new Duck Slayers, which we are working on a redesign of that, hit up the Printify shop. I'll leave a link in the comments. Thanks. So you can see here, we obviously had to do the exhaust in several different sections to make it happen. This gets us from the downpipe to back over the transfer case. This gets us from behind the transfer case, pointed over the links and out the quarter panel. And this is effectively our tailpipe. Now, we're not gonna wrap these sections. I actually have some exhaust shields that we're gonna bolt to the top of these. I've used them in the past. I actually run one on Yogi. They seem to work reasonably well. So we're gonna throw a couple of these guys on once we get everything positioned and bolted in the truck. So let's get this piece thrown in. Hanger. All right. And then that gets us out here to the old claw pile. Bink. Did we hit it? Are we even anywhere near the, we're in the ballpark. Yeah, that's it. Right there. Yeah. This will be held right in the center once I get it all clamped into place. And I'm gonna make a nice piece of stainless to finish out the outside edge of it, but that's where she's gonna be. I'll get it clamped up. Well, we finally managed to find placement for the hanger. And as you can see, we got it tacked up. Got this guy pulled off, hopefully for the last time. We're gonna TIG weld this dude on there and get it put back in, and we can make our outer plate. I'm excited. I'm so excited! Put my gloves on, because if not, I'll get shot. All right, last time to install the tailpipe. Oh. Where we want it. All right, so now I'm gonna take and draw a cut line on this dude. Yeah. I'm gonna chop this guy off a little bit. Try to flush it up with the body a little more. So that actually turned out really cool. I'm super happy with that. I just hope this doesn't get smashed. Luckily, we've got a slider, some tube work here. We'll see how it goes. That's all I got though. I'm gonna go ahead and draw up the filler plate here. I've got a pretty cool idea. We'll have to draw something up real quick, get it blasted out. Well, it's Saturday. We're back out here in the shop. We are going to try to make some more headway on this guy as we can. We've got a little pile of parts going on here that just showed up from ATEC. A couple of things that we need to address are going to be our turbo drain back down into the oil pan. Called the local parts store today and they did not have an oil pan gasket for a 4.3 liter V6. So I've got one of those on order, but I think I'm still going to go ahead and get everything ready for when the oil pan gasket comes on. So basically what we're going to have to do is figure out kind of how the turbo drain needs to be oriented and try to figure out where we can sneak it in the pan. I may go ahead and throw a baffle in the pan. I'm not real sure. That's something I've kind of been concerned about with this thing, and I really don't know why. Now, I know a lot of off-road vehicles, you run into problems on severe inclines and off-camber situations with oil pickup. I considered running an accumulator on this thing, and after talking to some people that have more knowledge than I do about small block platform specifically, they don't seem to think that it's going to be an issue. So probably what I'm going to do is while the oil pan's off, I am going to build kind of a little bit of a baffle around the sump just to try to keep some of the oil in there. I also want to be really careful that the oil is able to not only to stay there, but to get back in the sump. The last thing you want to do is create a problem that when you are off camber that the oil can't run back into the sump. So something to be mindful of. Basically just going to make a little flat plate with some holes in it to kind of help keep, maybe not even do anything, just help my mind. I don't know. We'll see where we get. But we're going to do that. We're going to tackle the turbo drain, and we've also got some stuff to go ahead and finish up our power steering reservoir. We've got an All-Star Performance power steering reservoir, and we've got a PSC feed and return line set up. So we're going to go ahead and get that guy on the engine, and that'll be one more piece of the puzzle. Coming up really soon, we're actually going to pull the doors off, and I'm going to take those over to my metal guy. We're going to do some work on the doors. The bottom of this door needs to be fixed. It is basically non-existent, and we're actually going to do some door cutouts. We're going to do some drops in here. We are going to keep the factory door handle, but in an off-road vehicle, it's really nice to be able to lean out and at least see your front driver's side tire. Usually if I can see my driver's side tire and I know what I'm putting it on, I can get up something, but with a full-size door, that makes it a little bit tougher. So we're going to do some cool cutouts. Probably going to drop down right here above the door latch rod. We're going to keep the factory mechanism intact and then trim up into this area. We've got some cool ideas for some windows on this thing. We are not going to put any factory windows back in this thing. We are going to be running a soft top, but I am going to have some cool soft side windows made for this thing so that we can fully enclose it somewhat enough to keep the weather and the elements off of us. So that's coming up. And as you can see here, we have a bunch of different wiring. Oh God, my shoulder's hurting. Sure, I went bowling last night. I can hardly hold my, I'm getting old. Oh, my arm is broken. We went bowling last night and we bowled like 4 frames and my right arm is killing me trying to hold the camera up. Anyway, as you can see sitting here, we've got a lot of goodies to get cranking on the wiring system. We're going full race car mode. We've got a switch panel from Joe's, another one from Joe's, and we have a basic 9-circuit wiring harness from American Auto Wire. So those are all things coming up in the not so distant future. But man, check out that side exit. Oh, wow. But anyway, for today we're going to try to wrap up this video and we're going to try to get these parts that we've got sitting in the floor installed. So first things first, we're going to have to figure out where the turbo drain bung is going to go into the oil pan. Get the oil pan off, get that guy tigged in, and that'll get us started. Let's get into it. Typically what you want is you want the turbo drain pointing directly down, which we do have. We've got the inlet straight up and the drain straight down. That way you don't end up with any oil pooling in the turbo. If you end up with oil pooling in the turbo, you can have oil blowing out of your exhaust side or into the compressor side, which is definitely not good. So we've got everything oriented properly. You also want to use the proper size drain. Dash 10 at a minimum, which is what we are using. Dash 12 if you can fit it. Dash 12 will not fit in this T3 housing, so we're going to use dash 10. We've also picked up some nice dash 10 vibrant fittings for use with the PTFE hose. I could have used regular rubber, but the PTFE actually withstands a little bit more temperature, and this is going to be pretty hot in this area. I think what I'm going to have to do is I'm actually going to have to come down, sneak in between the flange and the dump pipe, and then come back into the very front corner of this oil pan, which I've got a lot of exhaust stuff going on right here. I'm actually going to wrap this piece too, but I am waiting on another slip coupler. I'm going to take this back off, cut it in half, put the slip coupler in so that these two pieces have a little bit of movement in them, and get this guy wrapped and get it put in. But now it's a placeholder. We can go ahead and do what we need to do today to make all of this happen. Now, we did not attach this side of the turbo blanket specifically so that I could sneak in here with the turbo drain stuff and get everything kind of screwed into place, at least with my fittings, and get everything kind of mocked up. That dude just barely fits. It's actually touching the base of this bolt, and if you can see in there, I don't know if you can, I had to cut the end of this, that stud off already because I knew this wasn't going to fit. So that's pretty much where that guy is going to end up living, and we're going to put some heat sleeve on it too. I'm hoping this front corner is where everything's going to work out and want to be. It looks like that is probably going to be our best bet. So I'm going to mark this where I want it. Just going to kind of mark the edge of it. Now I suppose we could go ahead and make up our line. Yeah, let's do that. I'm going to go ahead and make up my hose just for cause. pan out and got it on the table. And one thing, this thing already has somewhat of a baffle around the oil pan pickup, which is pretty much what I had intended on creating. I saw a lot of these aftermarket pans that just didn't have anything in them, so I'm glad that that's there. I think we'll call that good enough, because that is pretty much what I had envisioned in my mind for putting in this pan. I didn't expect to see that in there, so good enough. And that may be a stock small block thing, I don't know. Like I said, I was just looking at aftermarket pans that you could buy, and yeah. So now all we have to do is weld our bung in for the turbo drain. So let's get a hole drilled in this dude, and we'll get that guy TIG welded on there. That one's free. I ain't gonna charge you nothing for that. Alright, so we got the oil pan all welded up. We spritzed some paint around the base of it where we welded it. Paint is dry. Get this oil pan back on, we get the turbo drain put back on, we can actually finish installing the turbo blanket, hopefully. That guy is snaked through there. I think we've got plenty of room between there. I'm gonna throw a piece of heat shielding around it. They actually make heat shielding that has Velcro on it or different means of attaching. I think you can even get some with a zipper. Kind of keep any radiant heat from getting soaked into it. Hopefully keep from melting that line. So yeah, get the turbo blanket buttoned up and then we'll jump onto the power steering reservoir. So next order of business is to go ahead and try to figure out where this power steering reservoir is going to live. Honestly, I considered putting it up here off of this piece of tubing, but I don't really think that's necessary. Oh my God. Glad I looked in that. Man, the inside of this thing is full of like gray nastiness from the inside of the, I guess from maybe the stamping process. So that definitely needs to be cleaned out. Got a dash 10 fitting on the bottom. It corresponds with our dash 10 fitting on the pump. And I think honestly the easiest thing to do is going to be make a bracket that mounts to the head. Something about like that. And then weld it around the can. The can actually came with a mount bracket. I better look at that. I think I kept it. Yeah, that was sweet of them. They sent a bracket, but they didn't send any clamps to hold it to it. Yeah, that might be a better option. Actually clamping this to a bracket instead of welding directly to it. If I weld directly to this, just bouncing around and vibration could fatigue and crack the reservoir, so I think that might be better. We'll just basically make a plate that comes off the head and then bolt this to the plate. So yeah, easy enough. And we need to open up our PSC return hose kit. Bruh, how flexible that hose is. Okay, cool. Sometimes this hose isn't very flexible. And the reason I'm mounting this is I want to make sure that this hose can bend. I don't want it to kink. This power steering pump needs a good supply of power steering fluid, and if you get too crazy with the bends on these remote reservoirs, you can actually starve the pump pretty easily. So just trying to make sure wherever I end up putting this thing, it's gonna play. And it's gonna have to go up pretty high. So I don't know. Now I'm thinking maybe it would be just easier to mount it off of that tube. Yeah, there. All right. Where's our brackets? Bracket sis. See if we can get this strapped to the can. I think the easiest thing to do is going to be to cut out a plate with this bolt pattern on it, weld it to this dude, and bolt it up. I could totally weld this to that plate, but get a little ghetto. So about 3.5 inches to the bottom is what we want. All right, let's draw something up. And of course, as I was buttoning up the power steering return hose, I realized that I did not plumb a cooler in there, and I'm gonna have to do that. But that's good enough for now. At least we know where everything's gonna live. And I think that's all we've got for this video. We've made a lot of headway on this guy. We've got the turbo pretty much The turbo is completely plumbed at this point. Exhaust is done. Power steering system is well on its way. A couple of U-joints at the steering column and get the hydraulic assist down on the axle done, and the steering will actually be complete on this guy. So yeah, we're making progress. I appreciate each and every one of you at home for taking the time to watch these videos. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, enjoy.